What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I've got another discussion video for you. Tonight I want to talk about specifically Sherry LeBlanc. She's great. First off, I remember really liking her when I saw her. Her cards looked really cool, the FLEUR cards, and I'm excited to see where Konami decides to go with her deck. But the thing is, she doesn't have a ton of cards. She has literally 4 cards to her name, and to be honest, they're not that synergistic. So we're going to be looking at her cards today, and we're going to be talking about where we think Konami could go with her cards, her support in Duelists of Whirlwind, I think is what the name is for the OCG there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when you read these cards, you might say like, oh, like not good. But we have a lot of room to work with, and we'll talk about that when we get there. All right, so first off here, whoop, let me scooch. Whoop. Okay, first up here we have FLEUR Synchron. This is a really big one, very important. It's a tuner, which is very nice, very important for the deck. If it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can special summon any level 2 or lower monster from the hand. I like that that's generic, but obviously summoning from the hand is not the best. That's already an active resource. It's not a +1 in any way, so fine, but still not a bad card. Probably one of the better cards we have access to in this deck for sure. Next up we have NecroFleur. This one's almost completely useless. Maybe, well, I guess we'll see. If this card is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Sorcière de Fleur from the deck. Now I like that it's generic. It's destroyed by any card effect, not just your opponent. So I guess if we do get support that allows us to destroy this card fairly easily, cool, get a Sorcière de Fleur straight out of the deck for free. We'll take that all day. So yeah, just it's a fine card. We'll see. We need to have very specific support to work around this card and make it better to really make this card playable, but we'll have to keep tabs on that. Next up, we have Sorcière de Fleur herself. She's pretty cool. When she's summoned, she can like take a monster in your opponent's grave and summon it to your field. It can't attack your opponent directly, and it is destroyed on the end of the turn. But that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, we just saw we have a way of summoning her straight out of the deck, and then she reborns something. And then maybe if this deck gets a Link 2, we can go into a Link 2 and maybe that gets our plays going. I don't know. Obviously there's a whole lot of range that Konami has with where they want to take this deck. I really hope that Sorcière de Fleur still stays relevant in the deck, but maybe just as a one-of that's like kind of a brick but still very good when you get it out, because we just take something from our opponent's grave. One, that takes a potential resource out of their grave, but at least for the turn, and two, just gives us an extra body to work with, which can also be really nice. So definitely have to keep tabs on this card. I think this is one of the better cards in the deck. Honestly, the first 3 all seem like potentially playable depending on how Konami decides to support this archetype. But so that's at least promising in that sense. And then we have the boss monster, Chevalier de Fleur. This is another synchro monster. The reason this card never really saw play is it does require exactly FLEUR Synchron plus any other monster, but it's level 8, which is kind of awkward for the deck because your FLEUR Synchron's level 2, and the only other card in the archetype that would even kind of work with this is Sorcière de Fleur, who's level 8. So you can't even make this in archetype, which is really funny. But still, and this is the only wind card also, which is also hilarious because this is a wind deck and this is the only wind monster. Whatever. This card's interesting. It's not terrible, but it's not great. During each of your turns, if your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you can negate and destroy that card. So it kind of just gives you protection on your turn from spell and trap effects, which is fine, but this should have been during either player's turn, just negate a spell trap, negate a spell trap, negate a spell trap. Then this card would actually be pretty clean. Unfortunately, because it only negates on your turn, it's not great. This deck has no disruption then, technically, so on your opponent's turn. So we definitely need to see some of that stuff. That'd be really cool to see. We'll have to keep an eye on it. There's so many ways that Konami could go with this, and I'm really curious where they do. The reason you need to keep have an open mind with this and not say, oh, how are they ever going to make this playable? Konami has 7 wide open slots to do this. Rage of Ra was the last duelist pack that we got in the TCG and OCG, and in that pack they decided to cut it down from where they were with 5 different characters getting support or 6 different characters getting support to 3. but instead of getting like 4, maybe 5 cards, they all got 7. 7 cards is a lot. We've got entire archetypes that have 7 cards and they're meta. Look at Eldritch. It's literally like 3 spells, 3 traps, and a monster. And the entire archetype is meta, right? Like it doesn't take much to be meta. I think some of these cards are actually decent starts if Konami decides to surround this deck with the right kind of support. I think this would be such a cool looking and like performing deck if Konami actually made them like able to perform at a competitive level. So I actually do have hope here. There's a lot of routes they could go. Like I said, I'd love for the availability to like churn Sorcier de Fleur out of the deck and maybe back from grave continuously, turn after turn. Like Summoner, take a monster, attack, like beat your opponent down, make a link, make an exceed, whatever. Then next turn, maybe you're able to summon it back on your opponent's turn. This is technically graveyard disruption on your opponent's turn if you can summon it then. Obviously not as strong as something like Ariel in Shadal's, but still it, you know, could have some potential there. So yeah, I'm really curious to see where they want to go. I think that, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like there's so many different routes you go. Obviously it needs to be synchro based. I think for sure we can expect a new boss monster from this, and also based off of the card art we got that I didn't even pull up because I'm a dummy, but it kind of looks like Chevalier de Fleur riding a horse, like a plant horse. It looks amazing. The artwork is phenomenal. If that's a new synchro, that'd be really cool. I'm excited to see where things go, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Like, how do you feel about this? Do you think this is just going to be a joke archetype where they're doing it just because like, oh, these were cool cards and we wanted to expand a little bit on it? It has anime power. 5D is one of the more popular animes in Sherry. I think even though she didn't stay very long 5Ds, I think she was a pretty liked character. So maybe they're just trying to make their money off of it. Or do you think they actually have a future? Like, is there a way that they can actually make FLEURs somewhat relevant competitively? And how do you think they go about that? But I want to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from me in the future. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.